Welcome to Sweet Valley Diaries, where a teenager's life is valued at approximately $2,000. Adjusted for inflation, that's over $4,000.
I mean, it seems a little steep for a teenager like Ronnie, but we'll get there.
Book number 51, Against the Odds.
Will Ronnie Edwards lose the biggest gamble of his life?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sweet Valley Diaries. I'm your host, Marissa Flaxbart. Thrilled to be here, starting season 6 of Sweet Valley Diaries, the podcast. Woo! Yay! And I have a very special, very beloved guest with me. Beloved by me. I hope you like her too. She's been on the show a few times before. It's Mary Parker. Hi, Mary.
I hope if anyone is just listening that they understand what a treat they're in for, because Marissa is the best.
Oh, thank you. That's good. Yeah. Everybody just look forward to this just being the best thing ever.
Not to oversell it.
That's the expectation I want to set at the outset. No, I mean, you buy in now. You love this podcast. You're going to tell all your friends to listen to it. It doesn't matter whether you or they have ever heard of Sweet Valley High before. This is your new favorite podcast.
And it really doesn't matter because if you've even heard of the 80s, you get the gist of Sweet Valley High.
Totally. And also now just hit like 15 to 30 seconds back and just listen to these last few seconds again, just over and over again until you really feel it in your bones. Well, this is a really exciting episode, not because it's the book Against the Odds, although it is an exciting book, as we will soon reveal, but because normally, I mean, the new season is always exciting, but these whole 10-book seasons thing, it's kind of arbitrary. Mm-hmm. Something I made up at the outset of starting the podcast as a way to, like, have an off-ramp for myself in case it just wasn't working. Well, that off-ramp has long since closed, but this is a really exciting new milestone. So that's part of why I'm thrilled to have you here with me, Mary, as one of my oldest Sweet Valley High just like confidants. We are now entering a phase of the podcast where I am reading the books for the first time.
That is exciting. It's exciting for me.
I'm excited about it. It might make it a little bit harder for me to choose guests because I'm just kind of guessing a little bit. I mean, I can read a lot about the descriptions. I love to go on Goodreads and read the reviews that people have left of these books, which is fun. You can tell a certain amount from, reading the back cover, just looking at the front cover. And when I asked you on, Mary, I told you something that I quickly learned was not true about this book. Do you remember what I told you?
You told me that there was going to be a connection with the Wrong Kind of Girl book. And unless I'm very misremembering Wrong Kind of Girl, I don't see any connection.
Right. So any new listeners, Wrong Kind of Girl is a very seminal book. For me, it's the book that got me reinvested as an adult in Sweet Valley High. And it has a character who is named Ricky Capaldo, who's just a minor character. He's the cheerleading manager. And Mary read Wrong Kind of Girl, and I think maybe even another Annie Whitman
book. No, it was just Wrong
No.
Kind of Girl.
Oh, well, I'm already we're full of lies. Okay. I really thought you'd done it a second time.
No, full of lies, just like Ronnie.
Ricky Capaldo, bless his heart, I really feel bad that I mistook him for Ronnie Edwards. Ronnie Edwards is the guy who, way back in book number 2, Enid Rollins, who's a star of the show, Elizabeth Wakefield's best friend, she was dating Ronnie Edwards at the outset of the entire Sweet Valley High series, and he was such a dick to her when he found out that she used to be kind of fast, and she had this boy from her past that she was writing letters to, not even like love letters, just
like a pen
letters.
pal.
Yeah, he basically like tried to assault her in a sense. Like, I don't know if his heart was really in it, but his vibe was like, oh, you're loose with other guys, you should, give it up to me too. Isn't this what you're like? Isn't this what you're like? And she got all upset and she broke up with him, thank God. But that's like all the Ronnie Edwards that we even know, except also that he's in Phi Epsilon,
which is a high school fraternity, which is not a thing, but okay.
Oh gosh, I feel all jazzed up.
You should. Let's get jazzed up. There's a lot to be angry about in this book.
Well, the last, I guess, little bit of business that I'll say is that I had a very exciting hiatus, Gladiators. I made a movie, which is kind of exciting. So expect to learn more about that later. I participated in a big 8-week podcasting fellowship, in the first class of this thing called the On Deck Podcasting Fellowship. I learned a lot of exciting stuff and resources that hopefully I'll be able to bring to bear on the show, and maybe even have some of my new podcasting friends as guests. So I'm really excited about the future of Sweet Valley Diaries, even though it is a total mystery to me what the hell is going to happen.
But that makes the future even more exciting.
Yeah. And I guess a total mystery is not exactly the case. I know some things that are going to happen. I'm really excited about a few things that are going to happen in this season, like some kind of shipwreck. Certain boys are going to come back to town.
I'm really excited for that book where Jessica gets eaten by a runaway tiger, and they go through the whole funeral, and then it's like the tiger gets possessed by Jessica, and it's just, oh my God, it's going to be thrilling.
See, when you started, I thought that you really had read ahead about what's going to happen, because there is a book where Jessica is somehow stranded on an island that they're going to go visit, something like that. It's called Lost at Sea. And there's one called Two Boy Weekend.
Ooh.
There are also, though, before we get to that exciting stuff, we're entering another phase of the Parade of Randos, which is the time in Sweet Valley High writing history when, for some reason, several books in a row are about characters that you either never heard of before or, as is the case with Ronnie Edwards, just don't really know or care that much about. And they're just thrust into the foreground. I wonder if they had
either run out of ideas for main characters, or if they were going through some sort of marketing push where they're trying to attract new readers and not make them have to start at the beginning. So they give them a bunch of new character feature books that anyone could pick up and read anytime.
I think that's probably part of it. And no matter what happens in any of these books, Jessica and Elizabeth Wakefield are always there doing something. Even the books where they're really minor characters, they always have a role. Usually Elizabeth is meddling or Jessica is having an opinion. It could be as tenuous as that. Something's happening and Jessica sees it happening, and we get into her POV to see how much she thinks it's, lame or bullshit or whatever. And this one is not like that, though. In this book, Elizabeth and Jessica Wakefield both have very different and very big parts in the story, even though it is Ronnie Edwards' book.
Elizabeth really just gets captured. Beyond that, she doesn't do much.
She does some meddling, but her capture, as we'll get to this Gladiators, her capture is a symptom of her meddling. In a very weird way. So let's go straight to the beginning of this book, because I was excited in the first few pages for a very silly reason. We start this book at a big soccer game, a big Sweet Valley High soccer game. We started calling the listeners of the podcast the Gladiators because that is the mascot of Sweet Valley High, but it's almost never mentioned. And all of a sudden, in the first 3 pages of this book, it's just constant. I have the physical version, not the ebook, but I'm sure if I did a search for the word gladiators, it would be 10 times at least in this book.
Is that something you can do on an ebook? I am a novice to ebooks because I can do that right now.
It is, yeah. Oh, yeah,
right.
Do it.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah. Sure. I can just vamp to tell everybody that they're playing the Palisades Pumas. So, again, a little geographical confusion. Palisades is probably pretty far from Sweet Valley High, but whatever. People travel distances for games. And then later on, of course, they're going to play Big Mesa. Big Mesa is the number 1 rivals of Sweet Valley High.
Oh, there it is. A search bar. Okay. That's
Here I was thinking that you were searching this whole time.
I was trying to find. Okay. It looks to...
I guess you were searching in a matter of speaking. You were searching for the 14, search bar.
14 mentions of Gladiator. That's pretty good for a short book.
So that's exciting. Jeffrey French that's Elizabeth Wakefield's boyfriend. He is just a great soccer player, and his blonde hair is bouncing on the wind as he runs and scores. He's just a star soccer player.
He's very good. And in fact, this is one of the more exciting openings to a Sweet Valley book. You can comment further on whether that's unusual or not. But, it's a big game, and then they all go to the Die Rye Burger, which I've decided to call it.
Yes, it opens in media res. Action, soccer, kicking, playing. They're winning the game. And the other guys on the team, Aaron Dallas, etc., they lift Jeffrey up onto their shoulders, and he's the king of the game. Like, so that's what we're setting up.
He scores the winning goal.
Is that
in the playoffs or however soccer works?
He's the good guy. He's the soccer
boy.
He's the soccer boy. So, step aside, Aaron Dallas. Jeffrey French is the new soccer boy in town, and so that's set up. Actually, as long as we're talking about the soccer team, I feel like we're going to take an unprecedentedly early foray into the part of the podcast where we talk about boys.
Oh, the beautiful boys, the beautiful boys. I'm in danger of losing my head too. The beautiful boys, the beautiful boys, the beautiful boys.
This is a very non-horny book for the most part, I think. There's not a lot of objectification of the boys in it. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. There are 2 kisses, but
there is some
in
kissing.
true Elizabeth fashion, they're very chaste.
There's some really heavy running hands through the hair that Elizabeth seems to really enjoy toward the end of the book. Like, oh, keep doing that. And I actually turned back like, oh, God, what is he doing? No, he's just running his hands through her hair, which does feel very good. I mean, I can't fault Elizabeth for enjoying that sensation. But.
I mean, there's also Big Al and his crony, Max, who, well, maybe they're a little older than the target demographic of this book. They are clearly gainfully employed in being evil bookies.
Yeah.
And they have their own cars.
And they have money.
I mean, what's not to love?
So Big Al we'll get to. There's Max. There's also another henchman named Bruno. Very good, mildly sexy henchman name, although I can't say that he was doing much for me in this book, nor was Max. But the soccer team boys get named, and it's really just a litany. It's like reading a yearbook. Like, who are these boys? Some of them we know. Aaron Dallas, Tony Esteban, Michael Schmidt, not to be confused with Michael Harris, who has appeared in a previous book. This is Michael Schmidt, and Brad Tomasi. These are other guys on the soccer team. How many guys on a soccer team?
Aren't there 5
6.
on a field at a time?
2, 3, 4, 5. No, that's 5 guys. Okay,
But there's there should be extras.
Hey, maybe
on the side.
Well, there's the JV guys, because later on, I should have marked the boy later on that is a junior varsity.
Oh yeah,
he's a good guy, a junior varsity good
young,
guy,
hungry,
up
and comer,
and
a real Alexander.
I actually
Hamilton
have
type.
it marked here.
Yeah.
I have a note in here from later on that says Jeffrey becomes self-aware.
Oh yeah, he totally does.
That's where
which is rare for a teenage boy. Go Jeffrey.
Well, this fellow is named Chris Wells. But again, we're getting it through Jeffrey's eyes, so we don't really get Chris Wells' is gorgeous, emerald green eyes flash in the sunlight, and his mahogany locks were glossy and cascaded down to his shoulders.
Yeah, we don't have the raw sexual energy of descriptions of barely post-pubescent teenage boys.
No, instead what Jeffrey is thinking when he looks at Chris is that what I look like when I'm playing soccer? That's I thought was a really interesting moment. But jumping the gun, as we are wont to do here on Sweet Valley Diaries, let's get back to the start of the book. So we've set up that Jeffrey is a great soccer player, and the other big piece of information that gets set up at the outset happens at the Dairy Burger when Ronnie Edwards comes strutting in. He's wearing a nice suit, and he's flashing around bills. He's got all the money.
He's flashing a wad. That's right.
In fact, I have a passage that I could read.
Oh, please.
Let's see.
Prepare yourselves, listeners. This is the cringiest character I think ever committed to the page. That's probably overstating it, but he's pretty bad.
So first of all, he's dressed in an expensive-looking shirt and pants, a far cry from his usual jeans and rugby shirt. Okay. What do you guys have? I'm taking orders. It's on me. Uh-oh, Enid muttered under her breath. An uneasy silence fell over the table. Elizabeth remembered all too well that Ronnie had once been Enid's boyfriend, and she could never forget the rotten way he had treated Enid after becoming insanely jealous over an innocent letter she had received from a former boyfriend. Ronnie stood by the table, his sapphire blue eyes twinkling. Come on, don't be shy. Get whatever you want. You guys deserve nothing but the best. Elizabeth gave Jeffrey an uncertain look. He smiled at Ronnie. That's really nice of you, he said, but we're all set. Besides, there are a lot of people at the table. Hey, money is no object, Ronnie insisted. With a flourish, he pulled a wad of bills out of his pocket. I got a good deal on my Mustang convertible, and somehow I had all this left over, too. Not bad, huh? Elizabeth noticed 3 surly-looking guys at the counter who were staring intently at Ronnie's money. They looked too old to be high school students, and with their sunglasses, beard stubble, and leather jackets, they seemed like the kind of guys it would be better to stay away from. Elizabeth hoped that Ronnie would quiet down and put his money away before they got too interested.
Yeah,
That's the rest of the kids comment on it and everything, but that's Ronnie's, he's in the money. Where did he get all this money? People are wondering.
as well they should. Can I spoil where he gets the money?
Yes, as it is kind of a central theme of this particular book, Against the Odds.
Okay. Ronnie is a stupid idiot who has gotten involved with the wide world of high school betting. And he thinks that he and his bookie are like real good friends. Turns out the bookie actually loaned him the Mustang. I was pretty sure they were going to find a body in the trunk of that Mustang, but that does not happen, sadly. Anyway, he's in deep with this bookie, and he thinks he's riding high, and he's really good at picking sports games. Little does he know, Big Al has some plans for old Ronnie.
Yeah. So we've got this guy, Big Al. His name is Al Remsen, who, he has a whole racket surrounding betting, placing bets, taking books for high school and college games. Now, college games is one thing. High school games,
It's a little
just seems
sad.
like a new level of sleazy. It is sad. And so it makes Ronnie that much sadder by extension, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's in huge trouble. He's not in trouble yet. Like at the outset, I actually thought at this point in the book that Ronnie, he'd been making such good bets that, he'd been making a lot of money from it. But we learned that it's actually more complicated than that. Like he was so successful in his early bets that Al has given him loans, basically loaned him this Mustang, loaned him this extra money. And it's kind of, it's really a dirty trick. Maybe this is a common bookie thing. Maybe I really don't know enough about the world of
High stakes high school betting.
or even like adult sports betting.
Sure, yeah.
All those adult sports that are on the television and stuff.
It's at least a very common evil movie villain bookie trick to loan people money that they don't have. And then, that's how they really make their money, right? They probably they make some money from betting, but they make more money from, threatening people with broken kneecaps.
Yeah.
According to the movies. I don't know about real life.
Right. Ronnie he's just a dumb 16-year-old. But the book establishes that he's never had much money. The common theme in these books, the kids that don't have a lot of money are really sad about it. It's hard to be that kid. And that's real, but this is the way that Ronnie has chosen to deal with it. Actually, I'll read this passage because it introduces Big Al and it gives us a little bit of a mindset that Ronnie is in and, attempts to help us to sympathize with this character, Ronnie, who we're going to have to sympathize with at least a little bit to care about what happens to him.
Okay, perfect.
Ronnie smiled as he followed Bruno to the back of the Dairy Burger. Bruno is one of the guys, the stubble guys, that was looking at Ronnie. And basically says, hey, I hear you talking about this Mustang you've got. Like, I've got a Lamborghini out back. Like, let me show you. And he goes to look at it, and Elizabeth is like listening in, like, that seems bad. So she's right, but typical Elizabeth meddling. Like she's got her eyes on these. She's like a little detective, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
She's got her eyes on these bad guys.
Not related at all, but maybe I've just watched too much porn. But Bruno is not a threatening name to me anymore. But anyway, continue.
It's like an earlier one of these books where they actually call out what a scary drug dealer named Buzz is, and I'm like, that was my grandpa's name.
That's an astronaut name.
Right. Anyway, okay. Returning to the passage. For months, he had been driving around the old Toyota his mother had left behind after his parents' divorce. Who'd have ever thought he'd ever drive a car nice enough to think about hiding? Thank you, Big Al, he thought. Even though he had never met Al Remsen, Ronnie felt as if the man had changed his life. Things hadn't been going too well between Ronnie and his father lately, and money had been tight. Ronnie had heard of Big Al through a customer at his father's all-night grocery store. At first, he had been reluctant to deal with a bookie, especially Big Al, who had a reputation as the coldest, toughest guy in the business. But he was also the richest, and the whole thing had turned out to be so easy. All Ronnie had to do was put down a few dollars on high school teams from Al's sheet, which listed the odds on all the area games. Ronnie seemed to have a knack for betting, and each week his winnings grew. Soon Al had become like an uncle to him, letting him bet on credit, lending him the car. Ronnie laughed to himself over his white lie about the Mustang. He knew it wouldn't hurt anyone to think he actually owned it. So Ronnie, he continues with this, like the next day in school, he's talking about all the money he has. Mm-hmm. Oh, not before Jeffrey like saves the day when, oh yeah, because Ronnie's about to get beaten up by Bruno. Like he's having this reverie I just read, but what's happening is he's about to be shook down, right, for the cash that he's been flashing around.
Now, Bruno works for Big Al? I thought Bruno was just a random guy skeeving on teens at the Die Rye Burger.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, actually. I said earlier that Bruno was another henchman, but I guess he's just a henchman type. Yeah. He's just a lowlife.
You get him from Henchmen's R Us down on Sunset Boulevard in Sweet Valley, yeah.
Oh, I should add this passage on page 17. So Jeffrey is kind of like tipped off by Elizabeth that something might be up. He hears a scream. He comes around the corner, and Bruno. Oh no, it's not Bruno. It's the dark-haired guy who doesn't have a name. Mm-hmm. Bruno is blonde. Of course he is. Just like Sacha Baron Cohen as Bruno. Okay. So Jeffrey says something about how it doesn't seem like a fair fight. Who is this dude? The dark-haired guy asked. He's the star of the soccer team, Ronnie blurted. Bruno looked at Jeffrey with disdain. Well, star, he said, I think you're in the wrong place. You wouldn't score too many goals with a crushed foot, right, guys? So anyway, I just thought, who is this dude? Is such a
this dude threatening teens, and it's also like
he's the soccer star.
He's the soccer star. 2 underweight teens against 3 grown men. That's a fair fight now, especially when one of the teens is sniveling on the ground practically. Anyway.
Yeah, the book describes Jeffrey, though, as being tall and kind of like taller than these guys who must have been, I guess, kind of small.
Yeah.
And he says, like, he brushes it off when Ronnie, like, thanks him so much for saving his life. Ronnie says his big secret is that he's never been any good in a fight, which makes me sad.
Yeah, he can only beat up his girlfriends, apparently. Look, I don't love Ronnie.
Right.
Ronnie's a tool, and I wish the book ended with his funeral, but maybe that's just me.
We have had too many books ending in funerals at this point, so
no, but seriously, we can get into this if you like, because I mean, the plot plays out pretty much like you'd expect, and we can get into that. But I think it's important to establish what kind of character Ronnie is, because he is very, very annoying. He's a sort of person that we've all met in our real lives. Elizabeth even describes him.
Can't take a hint.
He tries too hard, and in the worst way possible.
I think his worst characteristic is this thing of like, he won't just leave someone in peace. You know, like he won't take a hint. He's very self-centered. His whole relationships with anybody else is all about what they can do for him. Yeah. But he makes it seem like he cares about them so that he can get something out of them.
Yeah, and
I wish the book suggested that he'd changed by the end.
That he's doing that. He thinks that he's like, oh, I don't understand why no one likes me. And it's like, it's very obvious why no one likes you. You're a very unlikable person. Right. I know that's a really harsh thing to say to a fictional teen, but it's true.
Yeah, it is true. And I think that the book presents him that way too. I mean, I mentioned that the book is attempting to have us be sympathetic to Ronnie. And I think that it is doing that. But it also, Ronnie is a problematic figure. Like, one of the main purposes he serves in this book is to cause conflict between Elizabeth and Jeffrey. Because after Jeffrey saves the day for Ronnie, he now has sympathy for Ronnie, right? Mm-hmm. He thinks, people don't really like this guy. Maybe he finds out about Ronnie's betting. He's like, maybe if people were nicer to him, he wouldn't feel like he needed to gamble. It's a big jump, but Jeffrey starts to feel really bad for Ronnie.
Well, this is the despicable thing about people like Ronnie, is that everyone goes around telling themselves, well, he's not such a bad guy. I should just give him more of a chance. When he is literally doing bad things, there are very good, concrete, solid reasons not to give Ronnie a chance and to not be his friend.
Right.
And yet,
Ronnie
just like in society, not to get all political or whatever for a second, but people just keep giving him chance after chance and not taking his deep issues seriously. And just like, oh, well, you know, he doesn't mean poorly. He doesn't mean bad. And it's like, it doesn't matter. He causes harm. And I have very little patience with these type of people nowadays.
No. I would say, in all fairness to the book, I think the only person who's really doing that for most of the book is Jeffrey. And everybody else is a little bit confused about it because Ronnie is this unliked guy. Jeffrey even says right after this to Ronnie, after what you've been through, you could use an ice cream soda, which I thought was very wholesome and cute. Okay, so finally, this is we just presented basically like the first couple chapters of the book to you. Like, that's what this whole first half hour of the episode has been. But that sets up, you know, everything that's going to happen next, which is the next thing that happens is that we learn about the B plot, which is Jessica has been making earrings. She has a sudden new interest, and this time it's designing earrings.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes necklaces.
And sometimes necklaces, yeah. The earrings are purportedly very large, heavy, and ugly. Mm-hmm. I'm intrigued. Like, when I hear these earrings described as looking like big ornaments or like having feathers and being brightly colored, being vaguely ugly.
I mean, rhinestones.
I'm an earring person. I'm kind of like, I want to see these earrings and I probably want to buy them.
I know. Taste is relative. Like, there are some characters who are like, I don't know, it's so ugly. But even those characters admit to themselves secretly, at least Elizabeth does, that they look kind of good on the person that is wearing them. Like, it complements their coloring or something like that.
Yeah, Jessica is like serving a buyer that is like her, where they're interested in trying something outlandish, and she knows that if she can have the popular girls, who she has in her thrall, wear these earrings, that they can become the next hot thing, because that's how trends work. We all know that fashion trends are not based on like what is objectively the most beautiful, elegant, or flattering.
That's very true.
Look.
People wore half gloves, and it wasn't even that long ago.
Right. So Jessica is sitting at the lunch table, and now that Ronnie and Jeffrey are like best friends, Jeffrey comes in. He's late to meet Elizabeth for lunch, which she's upset about. And she's like, and he's with Ronnie, who sucks. Like, why are they talking? Like, why did Ronnie keep Jeffrey from his lunch date with me, Elizabeth, his girlfriend?
Well, it's also, that might also be part of what makes me hate Ronnie, though, because Elizabeth is like 100% anti-Ronnie. And Elizabeth is the most kindest, forgiving person in all of Sweet Valley. So if she's done with this douchebag, it's like, so should we be.
Yeah. The book even establishes that like Elizabeth tries to be nice to Amy Sutton and Lila Fowler, you know, because they're Jessica's friends. So it does kind of set up that if she doesn't like him, he must be bad.
That was actually a fun tangent I enjoyed, was Jessica's friends and how supportive they were of her budding jewelry designing business, to the degree where they went and they bought her jewelry and talked it up and were just being very nice and very like what real friends behave like, which is not what you expect from popular girl tropes in teen books.
That's true. Or even these teen books. Jessica goes to a new boutique at the mall that I don't remember hearing of, called Treasure Island. Where she's gonna sell her jewelry. She's like sets up this meeting, like, you should carry like wholesale this jewelry. Now, she doesn't have very many pieces of jewelry yet, and at the time that she's talking about wanting to make more jewelry, she's just in this Jessica mode of being really excited about the prospect of a new venture. And she has dollar signs in her eyes, which is also Jessica Wakefield's typical MO with any new venture. She's going to make it big. She's got a lot of confidence, got to respect that. But she just jumps straight to the end game of how she's rich and famous. But so she's talking about how she would need money to make all of the jewelry, like seed money. And the amount of money that she says she needs is $500, which when I read that, I was like, that's how much, that would have been so much money now.
Yeah.
If a high schooler was like, I just need $500 to start my business, that would be a lot. But literally in 1989, when this book was written, I went online, like I did the calculation. It would have been over $1,000 in today's money.
Wow.
So you have this chick just casually talking at the lunch table about how she wishes she could get a loan of $1,000. Now, if you were really starting a real business, that wouldn't be very much seed money. But this is not a real business.
No, this is
a high
ugly
schooler.
Plastic earrings that she glues rhinestones to. But like
That
she tells
she's made
Ronnie,
like 3 or 4 pairs of
Yeah.
so far, and that's how far ahead she's jumped.
but she wants to buy beads in
jewelry
bulk.
making. Those supplies are not that expensive.
They're really
like, go
not.
to Michael's, you know. You can buy a whole bag of earring hooks for like $1.50.
Yeah.
So, like lots of earring hooks. But whatever she's doing, she quotes the things. She's going to use semi-precious stones and gemstones and the feathers. And she wants some things to be set in gold and gold plate and silver. So she's got, I don't know how she's doing all this jewelry making, but Ronnie, of course, says that he could probably loan her the money because he's all flush with cash. But that only lasts another like 5 seconds because it's like the next day when Ronnie has, you know, his debts have been called up and now he's in trouble with Big Al.
Well, Big Al smells blood in the water. He's got Ronnie in his pocket. And since Sweet Valley won that soccer game and are going into the finals or whatever a soccer big game is called. very sports literate I am.
It's the championship.
Big Al thinks that he has an in at this high school with this child, and he can get this kid basically to help him fix the soccer game. And so there's the crux of our thing. Jeffrey was nice to this kid one damn time, and all of a sudden, next day, Ronnie's coming up to him. Hey, bud, if you don't make sure that Sweet Valley only wins by 2 points for reasons, I'm going to get kneecapped or killed. And Jeffrey's like,
well, this is
I do
really...
not have the mental capacity to deal with this right now.
This is very commendable summarizing because you have really gotten to the heart of it. I want to just add in a couple of little details that I think are weird and interesting. Before he even knows about the game fixing, he just knows that he owes. This is why I referenced $2,000 as being the cost of the what a teenager's life is worth in the opening of this episode. He owes Big Al $2,000. He asks Jeffrey to lend him like $500.
Which no teenager has.
Then he lowers it to $100. Then he lowers it to $50. And Jeffrey's like, I have $25. I will give it to you. So then Ronnie's like, okay, well, good thing I've got this Phi Epsilon meeting tonight because I can ask those dudes to loan me money. They're good for it. What's a fraternity for if not for asking bros for money?
Also, can you answer from a previous book? How did Ronnie get into this fraternity if he's so unlikable?
I think unlikability is like a really great quality if you want to be a member of Phi Epsilon.
Okay, yeah,
they're
touche.
like looking for the least likable dudes to join their club.
Fair enough. I mean, Bruce
And Winston
Patman is
Egbert.
probably the president, so there you go.
Yeah. The book so far that has dealt the most with this fraternity mostly showcased what shits they were.
Yeah.
Because of their cruel and unusual hazing process. Where, I don't know, it was funny.
Anyway, long story short, no one wants to lend Ronnie money, which is not at all surprising. Because
they don't have any money. They
don't have any money. I mean, Bruce Patman has money, I guess, but
yeah, but you know, rich people are just throwing their money. Like truly, Bruce Patman is old money. You know, like he knows better than anybody that like you
don't just
he's not
throw
gonna
it around.
throw cash. Like you'll never see that money again. He even makes a joke about how he has to call his like financial analyst or something to see if he can move some money around. So very rich guy joke. Love that. But so Ronnie has to call Big Al, and he has a code name with Big Al. His code name is Small Fry, which already you know you're into some shady gangster shit if you have to. And Small Fry also, it's like, Big Al, come on, dude. This is a 16-year-old boy.
Yeah.
But I want to read a little bit of this phone conversation. He tells Big Al he has some of the $2,000 he owes him.
Which is a bit of a stretch.
Some.
Yeah.
Some. How much is some? $25? 25? Big Al's voice was so loud that Ronnie was afraid the Patman's maid would hear it. I'm a patient man, small fry, he said, his voice seething with rage. It takes a lot to get me rattled. But you know what? You ought to be kissing the ground, kid. Because if I were right there this minute, you would be wallpaper. Understood? Understood, Ronnie blurted. Listen, Big Al, this was just a fluke. I'm good for the money. I'll pay you after the weekend, I promise. If there's any other way I can make this up to you, just tell me. There was a chilling silence at the other end. When Big Al finally spoke, his voice was soft and composed. You're in luck, small fry. In fact, right now you're the luckiest twerp in California. Sorry, I'm making him from New York or whatever accent that is, but it's just generic gangster accent number one. But, you know, that's how this book writes them. Like, I was thinking about making Bruno's voice more of like a, who's this dude? Like, I don't know, like Michelangelo from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Well, he is hanging out at the Die Rye Burger, which probably has excellent pizzas.
You're driving the gladiators insane right now, Mary. Just because dairy is spelled with an I doesn't mean that it's any less dairy.
Although maybe that is like a loophole.
Like some kind of loophole, but if they put I in the name, like with the FDA or whatever, if they put the I in the name, they're allowed to serve.
Okay, like, I take back everything.
Not actually dairy.
They don't have to serve real milk products since it's the Die Rye instead of the dairy burger. Love it.
You know, a fun side note, behind the scenes of Sweet Valley Diaries production, about 45% of the time when I am typing the phrase Sweet Valley Diaries, I type Sweet Valley Dairies instead. So anyway, so where were we? So as Mary already mentioned, what Big Al's asking is basically for the spread to be 2 points. Like if we know that Sweet Valley is a lock to win this game against Big Mesa because Big Mesa's star player, whose name is Jack Everly. I wish we got to see or
Jack
hear more of
Everly
him
is
because he
probably
sounds
the
sexy.
sexiest name of all of the names that we've encountered so far.
I'm glad you agree with me about this. Sounds very sexy. He appears in the book later because supposedly he's too injured to play. Turns out he's healed up. It was all the rumors were true. He's going to be back on the court. But we still don't really get a look at him or a good description of him.
When it's soccer.
Shit. Okay, back on the field. Well, you know what? I'm going to actually go ahead and say that the book doesn't know any better either. Because the book refers to quarters in the soccer
They
match,
do refer to quarters, and I know that there aren't
isn't
quarters.
that how soccer works?
No.
Maybe in 1989 California high school or something, but I don't think so.
It could be.
Soccer has periods, and there are 2.
Yeah.
Not 4.
That I know.
I did know that. I checked with my dad, too.
Okay, good.
To make sure that I wasn't just making that up. So the other thing that's going on with Jeffrey is that he's going to he feels like he's at risk of not scoring well enough on his upcoming chemistry exam to get a C in the class, which would make him, according to new rules at Sweet Valley High, ineligible to play soccer next year if he can't get at least a C in all of his classes.
Right. This is probably the most typically high school problem in this book. Worrying about one specific test.
Yeah, and we've seen this plotline in many high school movie, a high school book, you know. What if the jocks can't get good enough grades? Then everything will be ruined.
Right.
So all of the guys in the soccer team convince chemistry teacher, Mr. Russo, to let them to take the test early on Friday in the afternoon so that they can get out early to practice for the big game on Saturday, and they'll be too distracted at the end of the day when the test is supposed to be. So all the soccer guys during lunch period are taking their chemistry exam.
This is fair, actually, because I guess a lot of them have chemistry at the very end of the day on Friday, which, to be fair, is a terrible time to give teenagers important tests.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like probably what Mr. Russo should have done is said, hey, anybody who wants to take the test during lunch period can. But the soccer team does. In the meanwhile, Ronnie has had a very frightening kind of like scare by one of Big Al's henchmen who has basically been following him to school on Friday morning, just like to scare him.
Yeah.
Like,
this is the part I really like your input on, Marissa. they engage in a somewhat high-speed car chase that is foiled by traffic. Now, is that the most California thing that happens in this book or not?
I think it might be the most California thing that's happened in this entire series so far. He gets on the on-ramp, he realizes he's going the wrong way, he's headed toward the beach, and he's going to have to get off the freeway, and then the traffic is backed up, so he has no choice but to get out of his car and run. So, yeah, sometimes getting out of your car and running is the best way to get
if you're in California. Just get on your feet. I love the realism of that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I was like, I could really picture it. I was picturing like Santa Monica exit, like, oh, that would be a long, hard. Anyway, off of the CA1, also known as the PCH, Pacific Coast Highway, California 1. It's a famous highway.
Didn't it get famous? Didn't it get like washed out recently? That's not important. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's okay now.
Okay, good.
So,
phew, I was worried.
It's the one that goes. It's the one that goes along the coast. So
yeah, they have it in all the car commercials.
A lot of movies, and yeah. At this point, Ronnie is really. By the time he gets to school, he's like has a single focus, and it is finding Jeffrey so that he can make sure that Jeffrey is willing to throw this game, which Jeffrey has not indicated that he is yet. And this is kind of weird, right? Because Jeffrey, the book acknowledges this. Even Ronnie and Jeffrey acknowledge it. Jeffrey has only so much power to make sure that the gladiators win by exactly 2 points,
exactly.
Right?
And
he's only one man.
Yeah. From my understanding in soccer, it is extremely hard to score goals, which is why you have professional level games that are at 0 the entire time. I know this is high school, so it might be a little bit easier, but it seems a little bit insane to expect one player to be able to control 2 points to that degree.
Absolutely. I mean, Jeffrey is a great player, but I think the idea is that they all think that because Jeffrey can score so well and because Jack Everly won't be playing, Jeffrey could just score goals at will. He could just keep on scoring goals all night long.
Sure.
I mean, all day long, all match long.
Yeah. That is what they think anyway.
Yeah. So he's very incensed. He accuses Ronnie of trying to rope him into something illegal. Ronnie keeps on asking about this, and Ronnie even tries to interrupt the chemistry test to talk to Jeffrey, and potentially, fucks it up for Jeffrey. Like Jeffrey is,
he distracts him. The teacher, bless his heart, blocks him at the door, but I'm not sure why the door's even open. Anyway.
This was so great. I want to read what Mr. Russo says when Ronnie tries to get into the room. Ronnie has found Elizabeth first, and Elizabeth is already kind of pissed off that Jeffrey is talking to Ronnie about stuff. She's overheard conversations between them that
suspicious conversations.
Yeah, she just thinks the whole thing is a little bit shady, and she continues to feel that Jeffrey is hiding something from her about Ronnie, and why is he even hanging out with Ronnie? Ronnie sucks, and also you could be spending time with me is also at the core of that. You're blowing me off for Ronnie, who you don't even really seem to like, but you're letting him, ruin your studying. You're letting him interrupt your test, etc. But okay, so Ronnie goes to the room. Look, you can get suspended for this, Mr. Russo said. There's a test going on. I know, Ronnie answered. Just let me talk to Jeff for a minute. It's really important. The 4 other soccer players in the room all looked up in surprise. What is going on here? Jeffrey wondered. He felt his face turning beet red. Listen, Ronnie, Mr. Russo said in a firm, angry voice. I'm going to give you a chance to stand here like a considerate human being and wait 10 minutes until the test is over. If you so much as say one more word or move 1 inch closer to me, I swear I will suspend you so fast your head will spin. Understood? Whoa, all right, Mr. Russo, Tony Esteban blurted. So they're all excited that Mr. Russo's laying down the law against Ronnie, because again, Ronnie sucks.
Yeah.
And Ronnie referred to Jeffrey as Jeff, and he does that again now, and Jeffrey is so pissed off. He's like, nobody calls me Jeff, dude. He's like, why did you tell me that sooner? Just go away. You're ruining my life. But he notices that Ronnie has sand on his shoes.
Oh my God.
And then he notices how pale and gaunt and messed up hair, mussed hair Ronnie has, and he looks awful, and he realizes that Ronnie might be in real trouble. And sure, Ronnie has been roughed up a little bit.
Yeah, he got sucker punched by Max.
Yeah.
Which was the best part of the book, in my opinion.
So now Jeffrey, his sense of right and wrong is super confused because he knows it's wrong to throw the game and to let down his teammates. This is a sports boy, right? Like the sports ethics in a sports boy is just like, I think this
They're
probably
pretty
extends into manhood, right?
Yeah, there's not really a gray area
I feel
there.
like you could ask the biggest, like, least ethical shithead dude, adult man. This is my theory that I'm purporting.
Okay.
About his feelings about various, like, ethical quandaries or, like, what does it mean to be a good human, like, humane treatment of others. He might not care about anybody but himself. But if this guy is, like, a sports guy and you ask him about his loyalty to his team and what he owes his team, I could easily imagine the same guy really being just having the highest standard of like ethical behavior towards the idea of team sports and who your team is.
Absolutely.
So that's interesting. I think if I'm right, which I'm just making this shit up, so who knows? But I feel like empirically there are many people like this in the world.
It also takes.
And Jeffrey is not a bad guy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, it just. But he's a very stupid guy because it's like your friend comes up to you. He's like, I'm in deep with an adult bookie. I am a child and you are a child. We need to fix this. What do? You call the police. My God, This guy has chased you off a highway, sucker punched you. You are a 16-year-old infant. You call
and you're saying you are.
Yeah.
And I feel like you started saying you, maybe I'm wrong, was the you as Jeffrey. And Jeffrey should have called the cops too.
Yes.
But also Ronnie should have called the cops. I'm sure I can understand why Ronnie didn't. I'm sure he's afraid of getting in trouble himself because he's been illegally betting.
He should be more afraid of getting murdered by a bookie because that's a little more scary than being grounded. In my personal opinion.
If movies have taught us anything about how gangster shit works, Ronnie could have gotten off easy because he would have tattled, He would have been a snitch.
That's right.
And then he would have gotten a plea deal or something.
He's 16.
Am I using
He's not
those
going
words
to prison.
properly? I really don't know.
Okay, let's clarify. He's 16. This is a book from the 80s, and he's middle class and white. He's not going to prison.
Right. They're probably not even going to take him in.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, we know it's
they're
the 80s.
going to be like, listen, kid, do better.
Yeah. We know it's the 80s because at a later point in the book, Jessica and Elizabeth's mom is described as wearing a silk shirt with shoulder pads.
Yeah, Alice Wakefield makes an appearance in this book to, once again, look like their older sister, have a beautiful page boy haircut, which always confuses me.
Jeffrey is wrestling with this moral conundrum. Do I betray my deeply held sports beliefs, or do I help my friend by, not even my friend, this guy I don't even like, by throwing a game? He also wrestles with the deep moral conundrum of should he tell Elizabeth that this is a problem that he's having?
Right. Because then he's betraying Ronnie's trust, which is really, like, when it comes to betraying people's trust, these kids they do not know what they're doing. Like, they have no consistency about who they'll betray and who they won't betray. It's very
odd. Yeah. It's like 1 minute snitches get stitches. The other minute, Elizabeth is writing it all in her column in the gossip page of the school newspaper. There are no rules.
Cleverly hid behind people's initials, so no one will know who she's talking about. But it's bigger though than just Ronnie being in trouble. It's like they kind of think like Ronnie's gonna die if he doesn't, like he's gonna get killed if he doesn't pay this money back.
They do. They fully think that he's gonna be murdered by Big Al and his henchman Max.
So now Jeffrey's like, well, I can't let this guy die because of me. It's just 2 points.
And I also can't tattle because that would be even worse than than someone being murdered. So I guess I'll have to throw the game. It's like, no, call the police.
So
anyway,
now is as good a time as any, I think, to pivot for a minute into Jessica's storyline, because I mentioned Alice Wakefield. Alice Wakefield, she starts by giving Jessica shit for, Jessica says, in a moment that made me very happy, like, Mom, this is not going to be like Tofu Glow. Like, just drop it, which Tofu Glow was the high point in the book series for me thus far, where Jessica made a really bad business decision and it was very expensive. Spoiler alert, this is going to be exactly like Tofu Glow, except that Jessica does have much better, like, she does have better business instincts. It's just that
Yeah, but her Jessica
She drops them
instincts
pretty
still
quickly.
kick in. You know, they're
Yeah.
there. She hasn't grown out of them yet. Quite frankly, this is a plot line, and once you get into it, for the record, I have no sympathy for Jessica's parents in this moment.
Right. Because even Jessica, much to her credit, is able to talk her mother into loaning her $200.
Cash.
Which again, in 2021 money is like $400. Which is just so much money to a high schooler.
Especially to give to someone like Jessica.
And to buy jewelry supplies. Like, give her a cold 20, let her go down to the Ben and Franklin and buy some craft supplies. She'll make out like gangbusters with a $20 bill at Ben Franklin. Okay.
Anyway.
This is my youth. I know from crafting supplies.
First mistake. Her mom agrees to give her $200 cash. But like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
She's got $200. She'll give her daughter $200 cash. Bad idea. Whatever. Jessica gets on the phone with her supplier, her jewelry guy. Apparently there's a warehouse that she is a frequenter of.
And that's local.
Yeah. He talks her into buying $900 worth of supplies. But of course,
because it's cheaper if you buy in bulk, you know?
He knows full damn well that he's not going to give her anything that she's going to have to make payments on or anything like that. Like, no, bring me cash or bring me a credit card.
Right. She doesn't have a credit card. So now she's back into, I know somebody who told me he'd lend me $1,000, even though I was only asking for $500 back then. So she's the next day at school, she's hunting down Ronnie Edwards to try to get him to give her $1,000. I thought this was going to go somewhere. It really
didn't. I think it was just a way to match up Ronnie's story and Jessica's story. But it's like, he's like, I don't have money, go away. So she goes away. I mean, it's really the end of that.
Right.
She goes back to her mom and admits she needs more money.
Yeah.
Her mom guesses some amounts.
Yeah. Jessica says essentially, if only there was some way that I could have the money now, but pay it back gradually over time. And mom realizes that she's talking about a credit card. She tells her mom she only needs $500. Her mom is like, yeah, I'm not going to give you $500. That's crazy. But I will give you my credit card. And you are responsible. The mom tells her to make the minimum payment every month, which I also,
again, not how credit cards work.
Yeah.
Awful advice.
Yeah, you do have to make the minimum payment each month to avoid having your credit card canceled or whatever. But that's not a good way to pay down your debt.
No, another good thing to not do if you want to avoid debt is don't give your credit card to a freaking teenage girl who has no impulse control. Just some life advice.
I'm realizing now that we're talking about it, that it really makes no sense at all because
Absolutely
of interest
not.
charges, right? The whole point of spending so much money on the supplies is that Jessica doesn't want to cut into her profit margin. She knows that if you buy in bulk, and presuming she can sell it all, she'll make a much bigger profit because she's spent less money on each individual item.
And she's not wrong with her typical Jessica confidence. She's thinking that she's going to sell everything right away.
Right.
She's right about,
even if she did sell everything right away, that profit margin gets totally erased if she's paying interest charges every month for God knows how long. It could be years to pay off that much money.
Yeah. She doesn't know anything about credit cards,
no job.
Which again, it's not her fault.
Well, apparently
she's
Alice
a child.
doesn't either.
Right. Yeah. The real villain
that's
here
a good point, Mary.
is the mother. I don't even blame Jessica, who, from her own weird Jessica logic, does actually think that she is making a smart choice. And, if she was a real business person, on paper, she would be. But she's not. She's an infant, so she's making a terrible decision, compounded by the fact that she's gotten a credit card from her mother. So it's the adults who are at
so good. Oh my goodness. I related to this story a little bit, but Jessica also puts in a lot of work, like making a bunch of supplies, and she does it because the woman, Ms. starts with an O.
Lucier, I think, from Treasure.
Yes.
I want to keep saying Treasure Planet, but it's not Treasure Planet.
It's Treasure Island.
Treasure Island.
So Treasure Planet and Treasure Island are the same.
Yeah, sure.
They're just, one is a planet and one is an island. It's just updated for, 21st century sensibilities. Ms. Lucier is the woman at Treasure Island, and she is like, wow, Jessica, these are really selling well. I want to order a whole bunch of them. We would love to get a hot new designer off on her best foot. So she like pumps Jessica up, and that's what fuels her buying all of this stuff and making all the jewelry. She spends all Friday night or whatever, like locked away in the basement, creating lots and lots of jewelry, only to find out after she's bought the supplies and used them to make the jewelry that Treasure Island's manager has decided that they're going to go a different direction with their whole vibe, and they're not going to be trendy jewelry sellers anymore.
Just clothes and shoes. Which makes me wonder, who is this Mrs. Lucier, and why does she get control over some of the inventory earlier? Like, who is this
person? It seems
she's
like
not
she's
the manager
boss,
or the
but then
owner.
you find out she's not the boss.
Not the boss. So I'm wondering about the business model of this place that sells random jewelry from people they find on the street, but also trendy clothes and shoes. It's not a type of business model I'm familiar with.
Yeah. No, it was definitely confusing, but it set up perfectly to, fuck up Jessica's life. And this whole time they planted earlier, Chekhov's job posting.
Chekhov's help wanted sign.
Yeah, they are hiring a new employee at Treasure Island, and at the end of the book, when Jessica's like, how am I going to pay back this credit card bill? She jokes to her parents that she could get a job at Treasure Island because they're looking for a sales girl. And the parents are like, oh, yeah, you should definitely do that. They'll hire you for sure because they know that you're such a good saleswoman. And she's like, what do you mean? Like, I was a jewelry designer. I can't go down to being a lowly sales girl. It's really despicable. It's gross.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. At least the parents are able to find a logical solution that I'm sure will end well in a future book.
I'm just really curious to see if Jessica is working at Treasure Island in the next book, or if this just gets dropped off the face of the planet.
If you want my prediction, and you can give a little ding-ding if it turns out to be true, I suspect that Jessica will start spending all of her employee discount and paycheck at Treasure Island, thus making no money for her parents' payments, which honestly would still serve them right.
Yeah, right. You earned this. You deserve this treatment. All right, let's get back to the main story.
Yes.
We've got Jeffrey, poor Jeffrey, who is really shaken up about this whole conundrum, and he's losing sleep. And on top of it all, now there's a scout from a college that's the good soccer college in the area.
His top college, his dream school.
Yeah, who is there to scout specifically him, not even to look at Aaron Dallas or Brad Tomasi or any of the other guys. He's
Smitty,
there just
good
to
old
see.
Smitty. Yep.
So here's what the book says about this school. Elizabeth is the first one to hear from sports writer John Pfeiffer about the scout. Jeffrey doesn't even know yet. You didn't know? Some big honcho from Brantford College is coming to the game. Elizabeth's eyes widened. Are you serious? They're one of the big soccer powers on the West Coast. Jeffrey's always talking about their team. So, that's just a little, I just appreciated that characterization as one of the big soccer powers on the West Coast.
One of the many.
So, I guess soccer, 1989, soccer's getting to be a big deal.
I don't know. Like I said, and sports.
So he's there to watch the big game. And then it gets to be, he's actually there to watch a practice on Friday afternoon, I think. But then we get to Saturday, and Saturday's the day where everything goes down. Elizabeth goes to the game. And this is when Elizabeth makes a really weird choice, in my view. She sees this big car, and she sees the car, I think, was there the day before, too. Like, she knows that, like, Big Al is there. He's smoking a cigar. He's talking to Ricky.
He's blowing smoke rings into Ronnie's face.
And she's gotten the full story from Jeffrey now about what Ronnie's into and why it's so serious. And she thinks, like, there's got to be a way other than you throwing the game. There's got to be a way that we can get Ronnie out of this trouble.
Oh, gosh.
But she can't think of what the way is. Not yet.
You've got this man threatening children, telling us he's going to kill this kid. God, there's got to be something we can do.
she's just had it's on the tip of her tongue, but she just can't think of it yet. Before she thinks of it, she's gonna have to miss Jeffrey's game, which further fucks him up because he's already so in his head that he has the yips something fierce.
Oh, for sure.
She thinks that her best idea is to follow in the Fiat this silver Trans Am or whatever it was. I'm sorry, gladiators. I can't remember what the car is.
Some big ugly
silver.
mobster car. Yeah,
it's a big silver mobster car, and she drives it to a part of town that is so bad and abandoned that even Elizabeth Wakefield, Queen of Sweet Valley, hasn't been there before.
There was one detail. She's only been there on her way to the dump with her father.
So this is a really bad part of town.
Really
it seems
bad.
like kind of factory part of town.
Yep.
And this she eventually parks so that she can like creep on foot to follow them. And she sees that this guy who we learn later is Max, the henchman, has taken Ronnie into what seems like some kind of abandoned bar with vertical blinds. They were really specific about the Venetian blinds.
Venetian blinds, yeah.
Now this is when Elizabeth has her finally. It comes to her what the solution to this problem is.
This man has taken a child hostage. I know what I can do. Find a rusty payphone.
She finds a rusty payphone, and she gets as far as hello when she gets snatched by Max and taken away, and now she's kidnapped and tied up into the rusty bar too. He's been brandishing a noose. It's all very scary. And Max ties her up, and the book says something I thought was really interesting because it says a lot about this series. It says that Elizabeth had been in like really harrowing situations enough time to know that she couldn't show any fear.
Yeah,
and I was
caught
ain't that the truth? Elizabeth has been in some bad shit.
And also, to be fair, Max rightly clocks that Elizabeth is the real threat, not Ronnie, the sniveling coward. So he ties up Elizabeth,
Right.
but he leaves Ronnie just like sitting on a stool in a corner.
Yeah, he says he has some more rope for Ronnie, but he doesn't ever get it.
No.
So he's basically like teasing Elizabeth, and he tells her all the stuff that he's going to do, not only to Ronnie, but also to Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Because now they know that he's the big scorer who was supposed to agree to the 2-point thing. I don't know why they even used Ronnie. They should have gone straight to Jeffrey and been like, look, kid,
they have leverage on
this.
Ronnie. So it's different to
that's
go
true.
up to someone who you have no leverage on and threaten them, because then they'll be like, oh, a stranger is threatening me. Time to go to the police. But apparently, if you get Ronnie to do it for you.
Sure, but clearly they have no scruples if they're willing to just like, well, maybe they aren't actually going to beat up Jeffrey and Elizabeth like he threatens. Maybe that's all just talk, which is what Jeffrey says about those bad guys at the beginning that are trying to mug Ronnie. So here's what Max says. Elizabeth's eyes flashed toward Ronnie, but he wasn't in the same spot. Slowly, tentatively, he was inching his way toward Max. When Elizabeth saw him, he waved his hand, signaling her to ignore him. So Ronnie is like, he's got a scheme up his sleeve. Max rubbed his chin, obviously happy to have broken through Elizabeth's cool exterior. I haven't really decided yet. She's asked him, what are you going to do to us? I haven't really decided yet. I could just knock out a few teeth, break their kneecaps, or maybe I'll do something a little more fun, like tying them back to back and leaving them in the basement here. There's a nice family down there who'd like to meet them. A family of rats.
Yeah.
Then it says that Max snorted with laughter at his own joke. So that was a joke, I guess.
Lol.
And it's like, okay, like, so the worst thing he can think of to do to Jeffrey and Max is to tie them to each other and leave them in the basement where there are rats.
Yeah.
Like, if he'd said, like, a family of wild coyotes, a family of bears, a family of alligators, that's scary. But a family of rats is not gonna, even if you're scared of rats, like,
rats aren't just gonna like
do?
eat a live person when they have other options.
I mean, Jeffrey could just kick him, right? He's a soccer guy.
Just kick them left and right. They'll be flying around everywhere.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
this probably a lot of these books that have these kind of kidnapping or hostage taking scenarios, as in previous books, kidnapped and hostage. They start at the beginning, and that's like the thing that sets up the whole book. It's very, very quick in this book. Just Elizabeth gets tied up. Ronnie's in trouble, but Ronnie very quickly, like, he picks up a bottle, he smashes Max over the head, and they run away.
Yeah.
And then they call the cops again. They
Yeah.
drive away so that even if Max wakes up, he won't be able to catch them. They find another payphone.
And they do what they should have done. And page 1, they call the police.
Yeah, and Ronnie tells them everything,
And
you know?
And basically,
the whole
I mean,
story.
you know, there's some stuff to wrap up, but basically the end, the police come and deal with everything
Yeah.
and everyone goes home happy. It's like, Jesus, guys.
Well, the cops come. But we didn't even tell you guys that Big Al sends a telegram to Jeffrey.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We get like a little messenger boy to give this
I know
telegram
that's
to
not really
Jeffrey.
a telegram, but like the
he
water
said it was
boy
a
or whatever.
telegram. What the hell?
He said it, but I don't know if he meant it literally. And they're like, open it, because they think it's from Elizabeth. Jeffrey reads it. He's just regained his confidence. He's like, you know what? I'm about to play the biggest game of my life with my best friends. It's going to set up my college career. Who cares about this
Ronnie.
stupid game fixing thing? Yeah, screw Ronnie. Finally, thank you, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
And then he's sucked back into it because he gets this telegram that just reads, French. If you want to see your little pal again, just make sure you don't play your best today. Big Al.
Which, again, you win a game and you never see Ronnie again. It's a win-win, Jeffrey.
But so somehow Elizabeth shows up at the game with Ronnie, and she's missed the break, the quarter time break, whatever she thinks she's going to talk to Jeffrey.
Yeah, there was a first quarter. Now they're into the second quarter. Sure.
Then the game ends. And
When the game ends, because that's how soccer works.
Yeah. And Big Mesa is ahead, and Jack Everly is playing. They're doing great. Jeffrey is doing bad, and they're listening. Oh, they're listening to the game on the radio because apparently there's a radio station in Sweet Valley High, KSVH. This is brand new news.
I know. That was actually
whatever
pretty
you
exciting.
need.
And also, I mean, that's something that could happen if it's a small enough town.
My high school had a radio station,
Yeah.
WDSO. They still do.
Why not? Sure.
I love this. I love this, and I hope that we come back to KSVH because that could be such an interesting plot point. But weirdly enough, has never come up before.
I could see a book where Jessica falls in love with a DJ that she hears on the school radio and doesn't realize until it's too late that he's like some little nerd, but then she goes out with him anyway.
Yeah.
I could see
she
that
falls
being
in
a
love
book.
with his sexy voice.
Yeah.
Then she finds out he's only 14 and her head explodes.
Yeah.
This is a good book.
Jessica.
Well, not literally. Or maybe literally. That's like the horror
Yeah, it just
comedy
turns into
version.
scanners. It'll be fine. But anyway, so they get to the stadium, and Elizabeth somehow manages to convince the coach to call a timeout by yelling at him through the fence.
Yeah.
Which, okay, sure.
So that she can...
She's trustworthy.
Yeah, so that she can get Jeffrey... She basically tells Coach Horner, like, I can shake Jeffrey out of this. Just give me a second. I know what's bothering him. And that's exactly what happens. Jeffrey sees that Ronnie and Elizabeth are okay, and now he can play the game of his life. And I think they do actually win by 2 points.
No, they only win
they
by
win at
1
3
point.
points.
Because there's a point where Elizabeth is like, I would rather we lose than win by 2 points.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so, they win by, it's 3-2.
Because what if they won by 2 points accidentally? You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Then Big Al would have gotten plenty of
Then
money to pay
everybody's
for a
happy.
lawyer to get him off of these child kidnapping charges.
Well, and a cop comes and finds Ronnie really quick. He's like, you matched the description, which I think apparently, wouldn't Ronnie have been the one giving the description?
Yeah,
on the
seriously. And be
payphone? I
like,
don't
come
know,
find
man.
me. I'm going to the stadium right now. We can meet up there.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
So then everything's hunky-dory. And there's a beautiful moment where Jeffrey and Elizabeth are talking about how Jeffrey's probably going to get to go to Branford because he did such a great job with the soccer in the end. Never mind that awful first 3 quarters of the game, which, Elizabeth and Ronnie must have only been, that detour couldn't have taken that long, right? Because the whole game,
Yeah.
they don't miss the game.
A real
Anyway.
soccer game is 90 minutes plus any extra time that they decide to tack on at the end. So if it was a quarter, whatever a quarter of 90 is basically the time it took.
Yeah. Yeah.
22 and a half minutes.
So maybe that's, the book does kind of make it seem like they only missed the first quarter of the game, the match. So if that's the case, weird, but that was a really quick kidnapping. Max is not the best tough in the world. But okay, so here's a passage from the end of the book. I posted this on Instagram, so just one great reason, gladiators, to follow Sweet Valley Diaries on Instagram. I have a promise to make. This is Jeffrey saying this. From now on, no more secrets. I feel so bad about all of this. I should have talked to you from the beginning. I know, Elizabeth said with an impish glint in her eyes, but you can still try to make it up to me. Jeffrey leaned closer. I guess I've got my work cut out for me, he said. As their lips met, Elizabeth closed her eyes. She had wanted everything to be the way it was between them, but somehow, hard as it was to imagine, things were even better. The dairy burger would just have to wait.
Do you know how your relationships sometimes get in a rut? You know, you just see the same faces every day. It can really liven it up to be kidnapped by someone named Max and dragged to a abandoned bar and then escape by the skin of your teeth. It can really
She's like not upset at all. She actually even says, no, Jeffrey's like, are you okay? That sounds crazy what happened to you. Like, what happened to you is much more important than me and my Branford stuff. Great job, Jeffrey. But Elizabeth's like, nah, I'm cool. Ronnie's probably a little messed up, though.
So many dangerous things have happened to me after all. I've gotten used to it. Elizabeth Wakefield, trauma sponge.
Exactly. That's a good catchphrase, Mary. I like that. Well, so we've gotten to the end of the book, and gladiators, you may have noticed that we didn't do an important segment at the top of the episode, but it was not because I forgot. It's because I think that it actually might make more sense now for us to start talking about the cover of the book at the end of the episode, after we've established the characters in the situation. So can you see the cover of the book, Mary?
I will pull it up now. There we go. Wait, which one is this guy supposed to be? That's probably Ronnie, right? That doesn't look like
Definitely got two
Jeffrey.
people. Gladiators, you can see what the cover of this book looks like if you go to Instagram at Sweet Valley Diaries. I'll post a picture. Also, you can Google it, but come on, you know you want to go to Instagram and follow at Sweet Valley Diaries. So there's two people talking to each other. Now, I was trying to figure out, Ronnie apparently has red hair. He looks like I don't know. He looks very punchable, huh?
He does. He kind of looks
Ronnie?
like, was that Opie from...
He looks like Ron Howard?
Yeah, not like, he does kind of
Like a
actually
young
look a little
Ron
bit
Howard?
like Ron Howard.
Sure. A little bit like a young Ron Howard. He's kind of cute, but maybe it's just because I know Ronnie that I wanna punch him. He's wearing a pretty ugly button-down shirt.
It's hideous.
It's pink, I think, with like gray stripes in a weird pattern.
Yeah.
And he's trying to reason with some lady who's really mad at him. And this lady, I feel like it would make more sense for it to be Elizabeth, because Elizabeth is the one who's pissed off at Ronnie in this book. But at first glance, I was like, this is the way that these book covers depict Jessica. She's got the kind of sexy, swept to the side hairdo. Mm-hmm. But I noticed something else that's a clue. If you really zoom in on the ear of this young lady, you see what she's got going on?
A hideous black plastic earring.
I am into it. I want this. I can't see it that well, but whatever's going on, it's a big old earring. This is definitely Jessica.
It looks like
she's
black
just angry.
Black and tan, and like sort of coffin shaped.
Yeah, or like a shoe horse. I mean, a horseshoe.
Horseshoe could be horseshoe. Yeah.
Anyway, she's got a big old earring on, and she's mad at Ronnie, presumably now for him not being able to give her $1,000 that he promised her, which is the way that she characterizes it, even though I don't think any promises were made.
No.
She's wearing a beautiful shirt that looks very much like a shirt that I have in one of my favorite colors, turquoise.
It's a nice shirt.
And the book is pink and turquoise. It's really something to behold. Love these covers. Before we make this just a super long, extra long, epic episode, Mary, perhaps you'd like to tell me if, having read this book, you have any thoughts on whether you might be a Jessica, an Elizabeth, or someone else.
Okay. Given the fact that Elizabeth doesn't think to call the police, which would have been my first number one thought, I guess I'll have to go with Jessica. But that doesn't make me very happy either. So
is there another character that...
I'm going to say that I am, in fact, Big Al, the pathetic gangster who can't even take down a teenager.
That's That's just like the part you want to play in the stage version.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much. If I was going to be in the play of this book, I would want to be Big Al. For sure.
I think that would be really good casting. Gender blind casting of Big Al. Al can be, well, it can't be Alice because that's Mrs. Wakefield. Ooh, what if Alice Wakefield is Big Al?
Oh my God. What a twist. Then I'd have to wear a silk blouse with shoulder pads, but you know what? I'll make it work.
Yeah. Your haircut is not entirely unlike a page boy.
It's true.
It's not
although
a
I
page
gave
boy,
myself
but...
a quarantine haircut, so now who knows what it's supposed to look like.
Well, Mary, let's talk again a little bit more in next week's episode about this book, about gambling and student monies and high school times. And for now, let's sign off by saying, tell a friend about Sweet Valley Diaries. Post about it on social media. I would love to have more listeners. More listeners could potentially in the future mean no hiatuses. So you know what you got to do, gladiators. Tell your friends.
Tell 2 friends.
Tell everybody you know. Tell all friends.
Don't tell Ronnie, though, because Ronnie can suck it.
No Ronnie's allowed. Unless, I don't mean Ronnie, I mean literally Ronnie
the
Edwards. If your name is Ronnie, you're allowed to listen. Yeah. This is Marissa Flaxbart signing off, saying, don't bet money you don't have on high school soccer.
Wow, good advice.
We'll end with the piece of advice of the episode. All right, let's just keep rolling because my computer battery is going to die here in a second. Good. I'm not plugged in because I'm recording in my dad's closet and there's no power in here.